Alright folks, grab your ale, adjust your armor, and find a seat at the long table. Today we're gonna dig deep into dwarves. And I don't just mean deep like their mountain halls. I mean deep in understanding, deep in history, and deep in tactics. Welcome back to Monster Mechanics, the channel where we tear open the monster manual, spill its guts out on the table, and show you exactly how to make those stat blocks sing at your table. I'm your host, and if you've been here for a while, you already know that I have a deep, unshakable, possibly unreasonable love for dwarves. I mean it. And if you've ever been at my table, you know that I take any excuse to slip a dwarf into the adventure. It's not just the beards, it's not just the ale, it's not even the axes. It's that dwarves are one of the richest, most layered peoples in all of fantasy gaming. Their culture, their history, their battlefield nightmares, and they're the single most dependable NPC allies or enemies you could possibly run. And when they're done right, when they're more than just short humans with bad tempers, your players will feel the weight of centuries in every conversation, and the danger in every clash of steel. Today, we're digging so deep into dwarves, you'll feel like you were just hit by the Underdark. Because here's the truth, a dwarf in your world should never feel like filler. Even the smith fixing the party's sword should have a voice, a history, and a reason for being exactly the way they are. And if its dwarf warrior shows up on the battlefield, the players should know instantly this fight's not going to be easy, and it's definitely not going to be quick. So go ahead and pour yourself something strong, settle in, and let's get to work. Dwarves fight the way that they live. Slow to move, impossible to budge, and devastating when they actually commit. A dwarf in combat is never just going to be swinging wildly. Their tactics are centuries old. Owned through wars underground, sieges on mountain passes, and battles where retreat was simply not an option. To run them right, think in 3 layers: formation, terrain, and mindset. And starting off with formation, in a 5-foot corridor, dwarves are nightmares for attackers. The front rank behind heavy shields, spears and warhammers poking out in deadly rhythm. The second rank throws axes or thrusts over the first line's shoulders. And the third rank ready to rotate in without a gap in their defense. This isn't chaotic combat, this is a living machine. And for terrain, in tunnels, dwarves use choke points, murder holes, and kill zones. In the open, they'll dig in, literally, and make you come to them. They'll have staggered barricades, trenches, or lines of heavy crossbows positioned to fire in overlapping arcs. And also, mindset. Dwarves don't do half-committed in combat. If they're fighting, they're there until the enemy is broken, or they are. Withdrawal does happen, but it's always tactical and planned, never panicked. When you run dwarves, make it clear to your players they're not up against a group of warriors. They're up against a unified wall of steel and stone. And as far as your battle map goes, you should be designing it so the dwarves own the space they're fighting in. If the party fights them in a dwarven stronghold, they should feel like intruders in a fortress built by geniuses who have been preparing for this for decades. When you speak as a dwarf NPC, you should feel 3 things under every word. And that's going to be pride, oath, and craft. And pride isn't arrogance, it's confidence born from knowing your worth and knowing the worth of your people. Even the humblest dwarf miner knows they're a part of something larger than themselves, and that gives them a quiet, unshakable dignity. And for oaths, dwarves don't throw promises around lightly. An oath to a dwarf is ironclad, whether it's to a friend, a god, or their very clan. Break one, and you've earned not just their anger, but the anger of every member within their hall. And for craftsmanship, every dwarf sees the world through the lens of their work. A smith notices the grain of a sword blade. A brewer can tell the origin of a regional ale that came by smell alone. A mason will comment on the poor mortar work in your fancy city wall. Even insults come through this lens. That plan's as weak as a goblin's hammer swing. You want to say stuff like that occasionally. And a quick DM trick is skip the lazy Scottish accent like the one I just tried using, unless you can sustain it. What you really want to focus on here is the word choice and worldview. Give dwarves a tendency to talk about stability, precision, and permanence. It's what they talk about, not how they talk about it. They may describe a friendship as solid as bedrock, or call a betrayal a crack in its foundation. Use those terms. They'll go a long way with your party. And I get it, mountain halls are iconic, and we've talked about them a little bit already, sure. But dwarves are as adaptable as they are stubborn. Limiting them to underground cities all the time is leaving huge potential on your table. Think of hill dwarves. They're masters of fortified hill forts, ruling over fertile farmlands, acting as the stone guardians of rural communities. And some of the lesser known sea dwarves, living in cliffside cities that face the sea, building ships plated with bronze and steel to withstand storms and pirates alike. There's also desert dwarves, carving citadels into red stone cliffs, channeling underground water through ancient stone aqueducts. And believe it or not, there's also nomadic dwarves, and these aren't hobbits. They're traveling in massive rune-etched caravans pulled by stone-skinned beasts, trading masterwork goods across continents. Through all of this, by diversifying your dwarves' environments, you can create whole new cultures, new aesthetics, and brand new stories. A dwarven culture's relationship to stone, metal, and tradition will change a little bit depending on whether they live either surrounded by mountains, waves, or sand. And I could have a whole separate video on this, and I likely will, but we have to talk about combat. And here's the golden rule of dwarven combat. Never fight on fair ground if you can fight on your ground. Dwarves will shape battlefields. We've talked about this. Underground, they'll funnel attackers into a single-file death corridor. They'll hide crossbow teams in high murder holes, and build layered doors so that breaking through one just reveals another one behind it. And above ground, they'll build on ridges, plant hidden caltrops and likely charge lanes, and fight from behind walls that look decorative until they're suddenly full of arrow slits. When you DM dwarves, make the environment a character in the fight. Have the party deal with crumbling ledges, blinding lantern light, and echoing tunnels where they can't tell where the next attack is going to be coming from. Every step should feel like the dwarves were here first, and they've been waiting for your party. And back to battle maps, you want to be using height, platforms, balconies, scaffold mine shafts. Add multiple defensive lines. When one falls, the next is going to be ready. And layer your traps that will slow down but not outright kill. Dwarves are really aiming to control the enemy and not wasting their resources on random kills. And remember, at the end of the day, running dwarves is more than just making them tough enemies. It's about embodying a culture that has survived against impossible odds by combining resilience, tradition, and tactical brilliance. When your players meet a dwarf, they should feel like they're looking at a living legacy. Someone who carries the weight of the mountains in their voice, and the precision of a master craftsman in every one of their actions. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to Monster Mechanics if you want more deep dives into monsters and NPC tactics. Drop your best dwarf story in the comments, and I've stolen more good ideas from you folks than from any rulebook, so let's go ahead and add them below and share with the community to make better tables and better games for everyone. I'll see you next time.